Okay, so now we're recording. For everybody who might be watching this or what have you, basically, welcome to No Pressure, No Shame. This is Ask Lalah, and we're here with Lalah Delia,
Yes.
and I'll give you a chance to do your own intro, but I want to just tell people. So I'm the founder of Citizens of Culture, a nonprofit organization that uses arts to develop critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and combat resource inequality. One of our programs related to relationships, dating, sex, and love is called No Pressure, No Shame. We want to redefine modern dating etiquette. And the No Pressure, No Shame Ask Us series is one where I have conversations with women, particularly Black women, about their experiences in this arena, going from dating to motherhood. So we have Lalah here, who is, among many other things, a sort of voice of generation, and she speaks on wellness, education, and just published Vibrate Higher Daily, the book. So congratulations on that. Lalah, lovely to have you. Hello.
Thank you so much, Maceo. Thank you for having me on the show. And like we said, this is long awaited to have this conversation in this way. So I'm so happy to be here. And so a little bit about me. I'm an author of, as Maceo said, the book Vibrate Higher Daily, Live Your Power. And I'm a spiritual writer, a wellness educator, and the founder of VibrateHigherDaily.com, which is an online platform and a movement. It's a movement when you really think about it. Vibrate Higher Daily is taking your power back, is self-care, is taking all the time you need. It's a journey in grace. And so all the things my book all the things my book is about. And it's just the way I am in the world and being in the world through this message. And it has encompassed everything in my life, as far as career, family, the way I see everything, and the way I move and operate. And so I'm honored to be here as an ambassador for what I do and this message.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll dive into it. And the first question I have is a little bit one that's just kind of personal to me. And it's like, where did you come from? You know what I mean? Like your spiritual background, your cultural background. I've listened to a few different podcasts with you on it, but for those who haven't found out, where does a magical being such as yourself emerge? How does this happen?
Well, it definitely happens through just life, living life, all the experiences in it, everything that had brought me to this point has been, as I talk about in the book, it's been all around the spectrum from high to low to mids. And so as a young girl, I grew up in Los Angeles, in South Central Los Angeles, and my upbringing was interesting. It was Christian and Buddhist. My father was a practicing Buddhist, my mother a Christian, and my grandmother is Christian church mother, so heavily involved in the church. And so I had a very rich church experience growing up in the Christian church. And then I had also a very culturally rich background with my father, who was into, the African arts, African spirituality, also practicing as a Buddhist, which as a young age, as a young girl, allowed me to see, Buddhism is not really a religion. It's just a way of life. So you can be a Christian or you can be a Muslim, whoever, whatever you do, whoever you are, Buddhism just adds to that as a way of life, as a way of, as so to speak today, mindfulness, of taking mindfulness of this path with you and being a good Buddhist Christian or a good Buddhist, Muslim, whatever it is. So my father was able to implement that into our life in such a big way, which I talk about in the book. And so that was that. And then, I had my own journey, my own soul searching experiences once I came of age. And a lot of that led to me making a lot of pivots in my life that turned out to be just what is this? And how did I find myself here? And more importantly, how do I find myself out of here? And sometimes that led to me being further lost on the journey. And sometimes that led to me just breaking free and having a release for a while. But then these old patterns start showing back up. And so a big part of my life was breaking patterns. And well, a big part of my life was creating patterns,
Yeah.
and being caught in the pattern, right? It just staying in that loop, spiraling outward even more. And but then praise be, there came a time when it was all about breaking patterns, figuring that whole thing out, which was not a cakewalk. And because at that time, we weren't in the time of age right now where we had social media and all this stuff, going on right now, that it's just so much help. It's so plentiful and so abundant out there. How you can just turn on a page and get all the help you need. So, or access it on the internet. And granted, this was right at the beginning of that, which was 2008. And so I was figuring it out on my own, really doing the hard work, the groundwork, going to counseling, therapy, group therapy, to heal all the pain that I had experienced on the way. So to sum it all up, the woman that you see do the work today and the woman I've become was through the gateway of pain. And that pain was also balanced out with highs, but definitely those pains really catapulted me into a way to where I was like, no more pain. This is it. I'm going to take my power back. Here I come, and from there, just the self-determination grew and rose up within me.
Now, I have a question about the pain aspect. Do you feel like it is important that people get to a place, a rock bottom or what have you? Or do you think that we can choose to turn ourselves around and practice new habits and build new routines before we get there? Like, does it take trauma to ignite our healing? Or, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very great question. And a lot of my research and what I've found out, and just from seeing clients and from trainings and just being, on the front lines, I found out that a lot of that answer is based on the dynamics of when we were born, and the dynamics of our early childhood, maybe up to 7, maybe at the latest 14. And that goes back to, tapping into your inner child and how were you brought up? Was there pain involved? Did you see pain in your household at a young age? Was it full of love, and, were your basic needs met? And so a lot of that determines what each of us are going to have. So if there was some type of pain, excuse me, like for me, there was pain. My parents divorced at a really young age. And so for me, that was a lot of pain. And I saw my mother go through some things, which I talk about in the book. That was pain. And so I took in those messages. I internalized those messages. And as a young girl, it affected me in a way. Even the divorce piece affected me in such a deep way. And there's so many traumas as a young girl that I went through that affected me in a way. So going through that, that's almost a recipe for having to learn things our way, because, it's just how it goes. And then there's a piece where if you never saw a lot of trauma or pain as a young person, you don't have this subconscious programming within you that's going to seek pain, look for pain, maybe even find comfort in pain. Because a lot of us that have pain, there's this cognitive dissonance that sets in within us to where we start normalizing pain and dysfunction as an okay thing, and even seeking it out. whether we know it or not. So sometimes we stay in those relationships where there's rejection. We stay in those relationships where there's unfulfillment. We stay in those relationships where our needs aren't being, our basic needs are not being met. And this goes back to your childhood. You know, it's mimicking what you experienced as a child. Versus if you never had any of those, you know, lower vibrational experiences, you're not going to go look for them. You're not going to still be manifesting and calling them in on the subconscious level. So until you heal from what you've been through, you're going to keep attracting it. And this means, you know, it'll be generational. So if the parents never did anything to like stop the energy and help you heal as a child, then you're going to do it and pass it on to your children, unless you say no more, it stops here with me. And
Right.
that was my case. You know, that absolutely was my case. So yeah, so to answer your question, I just think it depends on the people per se, like how they grew up. And then there always are those cases who can kind of be in between, like, you know, riding that fine balance. But at the end of the day, I do believe ultimately that if you take your power back enough, you change your story, you change your narrative, and then you change how you start seeing the world, how you start learning and taking on messages. And, you know, a channeling that I just got and just blogged about yesterday was that the new 2020 timeline it's just of this. We are walking into our power. We're walking out of a timeline of needing to be the victim, of needing to learn things the hard way. Like this whole new 2020 is all about higher vision, stepping into your power, higher potential. And as we step into that, everything around us is just going to loosen that has had us bound for a
Right.
long, long time. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that bit for a second around caring for ourselves and giving ourselves maybe what we lacked as children, right?
Yeah.
So I'm somebody who is out here in the world. I don't know where to start, and I just know I'm going through it. But I've made it to the phase where I'm recognizing that I am stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know what my step one is. How do you? Maybe I got a job or a relationship that's not serving me, but I can't break free. I've been following all these accounts, and it's getting me there, but it's not.
Yeah.
Haven't done that first step. How do you make sense of that, or have you ever been in that place where you knew you needed to make a change, but that moment just before you took the leap to actually, you know, do that? How do you make sense of that fear or that hesitation, and in terms of being compassionate for yourself, to give yourself the time that you need, but also knowing that maybe your life does depend on you making this kind of change in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. That change is everything. And I believe that I call it a sacred disruption. And it's in the book. Like these things come into our life, whether it's this inner well springing up in us, that we feel something filling us up. We can't understand what it is yet. We don't know what it is yet, but we feel ourselves filling up with a different energy now. We feel a different calling on our lives. We feel, you know, this dissatisfaction with where we've been. We're growing disinterested, maybe in friendships, in you know, former ways of life. And this happens. And a quote that I have is, it's in the book. I'm trying to remember what page it's on. If you're outgrowing who you've been, you're right on schedule. Keep evolving. So it's right on schedule when we have these frustrations and they're growing pains, and it's a beautiful sign that something is happening. And so when we can connect to the beautiful part of the pain and not feel disoriented by it, it changes the game, because now we can breathe easy through it. Like when a mother is giving birth, her childbirthing pains, it changes how she delivers. You know, the whole room shifts, the energy, the baby even comes out calmer, you know, so what she's giving birth to enters the world in a higher vibration. And so, and it's said that when mothers give birth calmly, they give birth to calm children. And this is something that I practice when I give birth to my son. I had a meditative birth, and I got to see both, because with my older daughter, it was completely different. I was doing the whole like, you know, just like, what is this? And, you know, all that. So super extra. And so, but, you know, bless my heart back then. But starting where you can is always the way, right? So when you have this knowing that my life right now, something's shifting, I feel, something is coming to sacredly disrupt. And sometimes it comes in the form of a storm. I talk about this in the book, in the terrains and metaphorical terrains of life. Sometimes that looks like you'll be in a storm of your life. It looks like you're having to climb up a mountain. It may look like you're in the desert for a while. There's solitude. If it's like people are leaving, a lot of things maybe are being taken away. You just don't, or maybe you don't feel connected to anyone. Maybe it's you yourself drawing yourself away, but something will put you in the desert. Or there could also be weather involved with it, which like talk about the storm or the fog. And so you can be in the desert and there's a storm. You can be in the ocean, right, trying to swim for your life and trying to get to some point. But each of these terrains, they're metaphorical because in life, the journey is always about getting from one point to the next. But then there's that middle journey in the middle. And that's the part that a lot of people get most frustrated in, sometimes give up in. They feel like they don't understand and maybe this is like never going to pan out. But that middle ground, and it's another word for it is the liminal space, right. Or the middle journey. And it's like where you're like, okay, I'm not there where I used to be, but I'm not where I'm going yet, and it's just like, what's going to happen? And
what that reminds me of, right?
What does it remind you of?
That reminds me of the in-between growth stage of your hair.
That is so real.
Like I've experienced it with my hair. I think I'm in in-between growth stage, but also like with my beard, everybody has been through the in-between growth stage, right? Where you're like, dang, I should just cut it all back off.
Right. Every time you're like, I need to go in and cut this off.
Yeah. It's not working, right?
Yeah. It's like everything is glitchy in that middle, in that in-between stage. Like until you make peace with it, it's going to seem like everything is glitchy. Everything is just, like off balance. You're not aligned with it. But when you make peace with it, it's a whole nother entity for you.
Let me ask you about this then. Let's say, and this is just practical day to day, right? Yeah. I'm somebody who just left a relationship. I know it was bad for me.
Yeah.
And this isn't hypothetical, by the way.
Okay. What I mean? Okay, let's get real.
And luckily I moved across the states, you know what I mean? So I'm not seeing this person, but I'm on Instagram and they're still like responding to my stories and commenting on here and this and there. And I'm like, okay, I know this is bad for me, but I do care about this person. And I catch myself, but it only takes that one time to respond, and then I'm back in it.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, I'm like, man, you know what? I'm trying to vibrate higher. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that 10th time out of 10, I might slip up and be like, oh well, blah blah blah, and then now I'm back in that mode again.
Right.
So my question is, have you encountered that period of you found your practice, you're doing well, you feel like you've outgrown old habits, and then next thing you know, you're in a very similar situation than the one you told yourself you didn't want to be in?
Oh, wait.
You're just like, oh, I see the light.
Okay, hold on. Let me just, let's power on here for a second. Okay. I just have to like interject here. I love that like we're in the car with this and we're just like keeping this so like, so real.
Keeping in the street.
Yes, in these LA streets.
So yeah, I mean, have you ever been on that page where you were doing good, you had separated from so-and-so, you were like, I'm good, I've outgrown this, I know it, I'm moving on. But then next thing you know, you're back talking to them, you're back seeing them.
Yeah. And
you're like, wait, what happened? I thought I had mastered this. You fell off the horse, basically.
Well, it's Definitely, it has happened. It has happened. So I know that also well. And there was a few things that totally helped break me free from that. And a quote that I wrote, part of this was that, and part of it was some other things like stepping into my gifts and believing in myself. But she remembered who she was and the game changed. A lot of times we're still identifying ourselves as the person with this person. So the way we look at ourselves is our life is based on all the memories of this person and the energy that we had and whatever the connection is. And so all it is a matter of changing the dynamics of the energy that we are vibrating in. And so we're vibrating higher, vibrating out of that entity that we created, because energies, relationships are entities. And so this can get in the spiritual realm, but they're called soul ties. And so when you're intimate with someone, that is an extreme soul tie at that person, because now you and this person create an energy bond, and there's attachments involved, energetic attachments. And so it takes a lot of work. And the word that I use in that book is force, because when we talk about, when we get in metaphysics, force is, or chemistry even, or physics, excuse me, force is what's behind everything. Mm-hmm. Anything that's pulling us, drawing us, you're not going to get anywhere in life if there's not any type of force behind it. Mm-hmm. Force is what takes us out of our stuck place. So when you're in that stuck place, it's going to take a greater force to bring you up out of there. And so that's why, you have to do the work. So what would that work be? What does that look like, creating a greater force? So for me, my greater force was getting around, at the time when I was trying to shake this male energy out of my life. What I had to do, I had to get around even stronger male energy. So what that looked like was opening up to like the guy friends in my life and like really allowing them to give me relationship advice, let me know how these men were. And a interesting book that I read, and you may have read it already, is what's the name of the book, by Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction. Have you read the book?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that book changed everything to me. And that book was so pivotal because it was saying everything a lot of the men in my life knew, were saying to me, and I knew it was real. And granted, this book, even I say the same thing that he opens up in the book about. This book is not for everyone. It's not to be taken lightly, and you can't use it on everyone. But I believe if you have, a beautiful intention behind it, the book is going to work good for you. If you have ill intention, it's not, but the book is like a big tarot card. That's what it feels like. Because he's showing you how energy works and magnetics work. But I was able to really dig into that book so much to where I reached out to Robert Greene on the internet, via email. And I was like, your book is changing my life, and I just have questions. And I really would like to hear from you personally, like how to apply this book to my situation. And I just was like, girl, you're sending this email out, and he probably gets 1 billion a day. And he responded. And we kept this email chain going on for about 4 months of him giving me. So basically, Robert Greene helped me get out of my crazy relationship. And it was
That's a good quote. That's funny.
Yes, like he really did. And basically, like, one of the biggest things that he told me was that it's going to take a period, like when you come out of like a dysfunctional relationship, it's going to take a period of you being bored. Because you being bored and being okay with being bored, being okay with not wanting to pick up the phone, not having your phone ringing, having no plans, like all of that, and your life even looking less, like it's a lot going on, is what it's going to take to shift you out of that mindset and out of that energy. And, now looking back, like he was speaking metaphysics, he was speaking spirituality, he was speaking vibrating higher out of that whole thing. So basically, it's going to take a force, whether it's you deciding to honor your time, honor your liminal space, right? Like that's a liminal space, because you're not where you were, you're still not where you're headed, but it's honoring that I know the transformation is going to happen only when I'm by myself, when I allow myself to have space to break up all the energy, and just trusting that this person once, and I've seen this, and it is so true. Like if there's some things in your life that you're waiting to manifest and that aren't, look around who you're hanging on to that you know should not be in your life. Release them and watch that thing get real. Watch it show up
I was
every time.
Today, unsubscribe.
Yeah.
I put in my newsletter, I said, unsubscribe from my newsletter if it's not serving you.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe from other newsletters if they're not serving you. Go into your Apple, your iTunes, unsubscribe from all the subscriptions, and unsubscribe from your relationships that are not serving you.
That's why I love it. Yeah.
Because
that's real.
So I think part of it though is you touched on it is the boredom piece and that rough patch period, but also people being afraid of being alone.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. So, can you talk to me a little bit about when you first get into the mix of setting boundaries, loving yourself, right? You got shaky legs in the arena and you still want to be out doing the cool stuff, the fun stuff, having the social calendar, and you're going to get FOMO because you're seeing old friends do the same old stuff and it looks like you're not being invited to the party.
Right.
What are you channeling? What are your mantras? What are your insights around dealing with that discomfort of separating yourself and not having access to the same kinds of attention, validation that you're used to having, and being alone with yourself? What do you for somebody that's going through that, or even when your own experience, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, going back to my upbringing in the church, there's a form called consecration. And consecration is a practice when you are being set aside with God, with your creator, with the divine, the creator of your understanding, for a sacred holy place and purpose. And this is the place, like the liminal space, this is the place where you're getting the upgrade, you're getting healing, you're getting a new purpose in life. It's a very special place on the spiritual journey, especially as an initiate. Every initiate, and we're all initiates because we're all on this earth, we're all sent here with a mission. But before that, before each new big mission, we're getting initiated into it. So we just can't hop into it, right? So part of this is an initiation, like letting go, because letting go of a relationship is it's trust that it's no way, it's for no reason, so you have to trust that this is a key part in what's coming up next in my life. This is part of my initiation. This is part of the sacrifice I'm being asked to make, whether it's being okay that the other person let go or being okay that I have to let go. Whatever it is, it's for your good. This is part of your blueprint, right, forward. So really making peace with that and understanding that I'm being set apart and I have to say goodbye. Like I have to go away. And a big theme in my book is the hero of your life, the hero of your journey. Every hero in every movie has some point where they're away. Like they go away to like empower themselves. They go away to have some type of experience where they come back with all this power, this energy. They have some pain point that they're experiencing. They have some trauma that's going on. They have some things that like they feel like they're different than everyone. No one else understands. Then they also have an adversary somewhere, right? And it's all about conquering that adversary. And a lot of times the adversary in your life won't be these enemies far off, but it's small, subtle things like cutting off the friendship that is fun, is gratifying, but is toxic. Stop, giving yourself away to the person who dishonors you and doesn't respect you, your body, your sanctuary, letting go of the job that is draining you and creating stress and trauma in your life. Like these are also adversaries, but sometimes we look to the outside world when it's right around us.
Mm.
And energetically speaking, we have to follow the vibrations of what's around us, and that will always lead us. That's why my work is in vibration, because if we look at the vibration of the relationships, of the people, of what we're trying to call in next, if it doesn't match, like if these lower vibrations are not moving in that higher vibrational way, they can't go, because it's only going to call you back, keep you back. And we have to remember that every cell in your body works off of memory, and there's energetic memory. I mean, there's even ancestral, like you have the memory of your ancestors living in you, right? So this is why people can be born and like you do things like, oh, he does that like his grandfather, or your grandmother used to do that. This is memory. So it's real. And then again, when you're intimate with somebody, it becomes real on a whole nother level as a soul tie. So what this is going to take is going through that desert phase. Don't go back, go through to the other side, up the mountain, through the ocean, through the fog, all the things that are in the book that can help us. But it's all about breaking free. And I saw this in my life when I was able to withstand that pain, like I talk about in the book, that instant gratification, because that's a drug. It really is a metaphysical, spiritual drug. And we're feeding ourselves. And a lot of times when we get alone with ourselves, we're bored because we don't know ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't know what keeps us entertained. And you would be surprised that the beautiful things that you would begin to love and take up interest in, if you go by yourself, go be in the desert, be by yourself, get away from people that you're normally around, and grow. And maybe you'll even see wow, we really don't have anything in common lately. And I've just been living on autopilot. This isn't even my type anymore. I'm just going with the flow just so I can have someone fill up space. But we have to leave space around us for the next beautiful iteration of our life to enter into.
Awesome. I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah.
There's something that I always thought was interesting, is that your platform and your book is Vibrate Higher Daily.
Yeah.
And so I always wondered, how do you make it daily? Because even just as someone who's reading or seeing this invitation, it makes me, as someone who creates, do you find that it's challenging alone just to, as a content creator, as an author, as a producer, to just keep churning out knowledge in the same way that it might be difficult for somebody to study the course, this daily part of it, because I know that I watch The Rock on Instagram, and he says he works out 6 days a week, but that's the day he eats a mountain of cookies. So what you're saying is 7 days.
7 days, no days off. No days off. But what it means when I say daily is, so it's not Vibrate Higher Daily as in every day you're going to be at a even higher level. Mm-hmm. It's Vibrate Higher Daily from wherever you are. Mm-hmm. So you may be on level 10, you might be turned up to level 10 on Friday, but come Wednesday, you're like, I am so depleted. I'm tapped out. Maybe you're feeling a 3 energy rise, right? But it doesn't mean that you're low vibrational. It just means that you're going to vibrate higher that day from wherever you find yourself, wherever that is. That's always the entry point, wherever you are. And Vibrating Higher Daily is a daily path to taking your power back, to journeying in grace, as I always say. So never about reaching perfection, but about showing up daily the best you can for yourself. And what this looks like for a creator, for me, is I gave myself a challenge, and it was what would happen if I fully surrendered to the call, and realized that, I'm not going to take so many days off because there's someone out there waiting for a word, waiting for a message. And I'm just going to be, an obedient soldier, warrior, vessel for this work that is channeling through me. And hail, sleet, snow, high water, I
Mhm.
did it. Like I really did this inner challenge that not to say that this is for everyone, but I did it because I know that was my calling, right? But it's different from this whole toxic way that we've been running the show that I see shifting, thank goodness, is get rich or die trying. That whole thing is like, no, like we're not living that way anymore. It's all about flowing, even creating slowly, just like me. Like some days I might not be outwardly performing, so to speak, but inwardly, like within my own private space, I'm doing something, but something in the realm of vibrational based living, vibrating higher, maybe creating, just because it's now my lifestyle. So it's not just something I do for work or I do, with my family. It's just all one. So I literally cannot be any other way. It's like fully embodied.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it shows in many ways. I, I wanted to get personal for a second.
Okay, let's go.
Um, the question I have for you is, um, so you're a mother,
Yes.
and you have two kids.
Yes.
Okay, and I think there's sometimes this challenge between, you know, falling out of control, doing your dreams. People feel as though they can't have their dreams, or they got to take care of their kids, or they have the idea that they got to show their kids how to live their dreams. Or how do you
Yeah.
make sense of being who you need to be in the world for you, and also being who you need to be for your family and for your children?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's living in balance and it's understanding that, self-love. It all self-love has to be the root because I can't treat you good if I'm not treating myself good. I can't love you if I'm not loving myself. I can't nourish you well if I'm not nourishing myself. And so that's really where we have to start drawing the line and as a parent and saying, I'm going to give myself today because I've been going hard in mommy or daddy mode all week, and it's time to tap in and get poured back into myself as the vessel, right? Because a parent is a vessel, a parent is a guide, a teacher, everything. And so we're the nurturers, and something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say is the mother is the first teacher. And so, and you can just say whatever parent is most dominant in that child's life, that's the first teacher, whether it's the mother or the father. Maybe it's an aunt, but you are that child's first teacher. And so what are you teaching them? Are you teaching them self-love? And so that became very pivotal and important in my life, to teach my children how to love myself, how to nurture myself, and then, how to be gentle in conversations with them, how to let them be critical thinkers and let them know that their point counts. And so vibrational based living has turned for me as a parent into vibrational based parenting. So my daughter, I have a 22-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. So there, it's just like both ends of the spectrum, an adult and then a child. But we mesh really well because I intentionally am curating what the energy is all the time, just monitoring the vibrations and really being an example. Where before, I know when we were growing up, like in the 80s and I was born in 74. So from the late 70s to the 80s to the 90s, it was kind of this thing of like, as a parent, you do what I say do because I said it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And so thank goodness that we were growing out of that, as we should, because children come, like Khalil Gibran in the book The Prophet talks about, your children are not your children, they're not yours. So we have to realize that they are just these beautiful vessels also that are just coming through us to do their work here. And we're nurturers and caretakers of them. And so it's so important to take that work back as a parent, and love yourself. Don't always stay on mommy mode, and know how to have fun with your children, but also give nourishment to yourself. You have to, or you'll burn out as a parent and a caregiver or caretaker.
I love
So
it.
important.
My other question is, so around this like dating and stuff. Was telling you before that I heard on the podcast you were practicing celibacy. How did that come to be? Was there a vow or something? Where did that idea come from? And what benefits do you reap from that practice that other people might, for those maybe considering it? I know other people that have, what has the practice, what has it served you? How has it served you?
Yeah, it literally was.
And then how has it served you? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it started as a way of going through my middle journey, out of divorce, and just knowing that this was the straw for me. They broke the camel's back. This was it for me. Like a divorce, and I'm just like, this is it. I need to take a break, and I need to fully immerse into this healing journey, into this process. And my divorce, and it turned out to be such a beautiful thing, because it was the dark night of the soul and we have multiple dark nights of the soul, like I talk about in the book. It's never just one. It's just so many different ones we have. But this one was interesting because I knew that this was going to be a game changer for me. And I knew that I had to find the high vibrational path in it. And I was like, how can I get the most out of this process and really cleanse, reach a level of purity? Because I knew at this point I was being called to a level of purity even. And knowing my past, I was like, what? Like me? Like what? How is this going to happen, right? But I meditated, I prayed, and my spiritual faith, like it does for us all, it came back through right on time. And all the messages that I remember as a young girl about, celibacy, what it does spiritually, it was always in the back of my head growing up, just, part Christian, part Buddhist. You feel the shame behind the sex, but you don't really understand why celibacy is important on a spiritual path. And I really think that the church doesn't teach it in a way that is empowering, like it could be. It's just like the shame piece. So that never works. It's like a fear-based tactic, right? But when you understand that shutting it down in order to heal, the healing goes deeper because you don't have this other person's energy intertwining with yours. You're able to break that whole piece off of there. You don't have this other force. There's nothing, if you want to cut somebody's energy out of your life, the quickest and the strongest, stop having sex with them. Stop. Like, it's all, because you're always going to be connected to them in some way. You're going to keep that soul tie I talked about earlier. That's going to be always there if you're continuing to be intimate with the person. And so cutting it off, shutting it down, and then saying, I'm taking all this energy that would have went towards that, and I'm going to apply it towards my creativity. I'm going to transmute it. And a book that is really great for this, that helped me out, but helped so many others out, is Think, Rich, and Grow. In that book, Napoleon Hill has a whole chapter on transmuting sexual energy into creative power. And he talks about how, so many, just successful people throughout time did this process. And so I was like, yep, this is right in line with what I'm doing. And so I read it. And I also read, just other sacred texts that really resonated with me. And I got around friends that were doing the same thing. That's important, to call in your community. And also another thing that I did that I feel was really pivotal was to connect to sacred poets. And like Rumi and Rabia, like these are two of my favorites. But Rabia, she was an ascetic. Rumi was an ascetic. And anybody watching, an ascetic is someone who has taken a vow of celibacy to live their life for their calling, for their purpose. And it's another, maybe a way of seeing it is the monks today, living that monastic life. And for me, that was a life that was calling me as a young girl, and I never understood why. But fast forward to today, I understand why. I live a very monastic life, and my home is set up like, a monastery. It's like a sanctuary. And I have to live that way. And I fantasized about becoming a monk, a nun one day, but I would never renounce my children, of course. But if we can live in a state of sacredness, right? Sacredness that isn't interrupted or disrupted by anybody else's energy, that's when we can fully come into our full selves. And then to trust that it's okay. It's still fun. You can still have all the things, right? But it's just letting that energy not govern our emotions and not guide and control our emotions. Because sometimes when we get lonely, we want to fill that space up with another person's energy. And you kind of have to just starve that thing out, even when it's hard, and that's really what a lot of energy is, letting it, I mean, that's literally what electronics do. They work until they die out, right? And so are you going to keep charging it back up, or are you going to let it stay dead, right? And so sexual energy, again, just when we think about in the spiritual realm, we're able to tap into higher vibrational ways of being when we are less sexual in that way. And then we tap into this higher mind so that sexual energy rises up from the lower chakra, which is considered, your base chakra, your survival mode. We're having animalistic sex, like survival. I have to procreate. And it goes to now maybe you're even with, say you're in a relationship, and you might even start having, maybe you're less intimate in that way, and you start becoming like, there's a Dead Prez song from the 90s called Mind Sex. Like, it's just a beautiful song about, really getting intimate with the mind, the spirit, knowing somebody in these other higher vibrational realms, but also knowing yourself and allowing for me, it was about none of that about another person, but it was about allowing myself to cleanse, to purify, to purge in order for my work to come out. Ultimately, that's what it was about. And there's no way I would have been able to reach, the levels in my career I had now, had I not been obedient to the call to celibacy for my life and to take that vow and to honor it.
Wow. Well, that was well put. And I just really want to pause really quick and say,
Yeah.
It's really great to hear you drop Robert Greene and Napoleon Hill and Rumi and Khalil Gibran and Dead Prez all in one call.
Hey.
That's my people. You're my people.
Yes. If you know, you know.
I'm like, yes, all those references. I'm like, I got Khalil Gibran right here. I read Art of Seduction, 48 Laws of Power. Think and Grow Rich was a book I grew up with. Like, I think it came out later, but it was like my dad had it. No, it came out when my dad was like a little kid.
Yeah. Think and Grow Rich that book was, that was like near the turn of the century. Napoleon Hill was dropping gems like way before people were ready.
And I got he bought another one when I was a kid to like read it again while but yeah, so this has been a blast. I just love that. I think I'm just gonna be working on growing my hair out, past the awkward stage.
Yes.
And I hope and encourage that other people will have perseverance and faith and trust in the process to move through that. Because it's certainly not easy.
But it's doable. That's the powerful part, right? That
it is doable.
It's doable. It's so doable because other people have done it, right? And so that's what I always draw on. Like, other people have gotten past this point. So let me tap into that collective strength and call upon you, like create spiritual mentors, like call upon, if you have no support community in your life that looks like that has done that, call on the greats because they're ancestors now and they can help us even more from the other side.
Right. Anything left that you want to say on as parting words to me or anybody else, anything we missed or you want to just let us know? I'm going to put all the links, Vibrate Higher Daily newsletter, Instagram, Lalah Delia, and of course, Vibrate Higher Daily, the book. What else did you want to say before we before we get out of here?
I mean, that's good. I think that was very thorough. So thank you so much. I just want to encourage everyone to continue to live your power going into 2020. This is the new timeline. This is the time. Everything that you have been through has brought you to this point of living your power. And so anything less than that is just an illusion. If you need to learn more about this, my latest blog was about that, about living in your power. And it was just a challenge that came through to me. And that's a gift that I have that I'm going to start sharing more of in this year. And just live your power and continue to show up, vibrate higher in your space. And you'll continue to create more space for yourself in the world, more potential, more opportunity, because that's what you're here to do.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.